Hi, guys. Welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. It's April 6th, 2024, right? Time's moving, getting near springtime, and we're coming off I guess, the first earthquake I certainly remember in New Jersey. So didn't look like there was a lot of damage, but it was something that's very unusual. So I don't even know. Maybe they felt it up in Cortland, New York, where our sponsor guy Coriano was just checking in. So
Yeah, Guy Coriano with the
we'll
comment, "Let's
see
go,
about
boys."
that.
Yeah, he got the
Yeah.
comment, "Let's go,
But
boys."
we
And
got a lot of stuff.
yeah, interesting earthquake yesterday, and we're ready to go. Move
Yeah,
full speed
very
ahead, I guess
unusual.
you could say. Just an earthquake. Move along. Nothing new in Jersey.
That's right. Right. This
Nothing
isn't a
happened.
weather show. It's a sports show, right?
Just a
Sports
sports show.
show.
We can talk about it, but move
Oh,
along.
we always start off with our monologue. And Eli, I have a monologue this week because I read a book and I'm going to recommend the book later on. But it was about, and I know I've spoken about Muhammad Ali before. There was some documentaries on it, but this was really enlightening for me because I grew up watching him with the Ali Frazier 3 fights, and he fought Ken Norton and all this stuff. And he was such a dynamic personality. And I mean, boxing has kind of gone by the wayside nowadays. It's been sort of supplanted by this UFC stuff, which I know. I mean, I'm not a prude on anything, but I just find it to be too barbaric. But the gist I found out a lot of different things about Muhammad Ali when he was relatively young in his late 20s, early 30s, and they just kept putting him out there. And we know he ended up succumbing with Parkinson's disease and so forth, but he was a true champion, and he had just great fights with Joe Frazier and all this. But it was just shocking how they could see his health was deteriorating, and yet they kept putting him out there time and time again. Um, I know one of our loyal listeners, Jim Walsh, and I we both watched all three of the Frazier Ali fights, and he was making a lot of money. He supported a lot of people, and he was just a great guy. And some of the things I found out, like he shouldn't have been in that last fight with Larry Holmes. He was obviously way washed up, but it was money for the Nation of Islam, who was his sponsor and so forth. So it was just a very interesting thing. And if you get a chance to read, I'll give you the book recommendation in a little bit. But he was truly a great champion. He was such a
Wow.
dynamic personality. And, a lot of our younger listeners never got a chance to see him fight. And that's when boxing was just at its absolute pinnacle. It was great. And I just wanted to give a shout out to Muhammad Ali because he really
Right.
was a true champion, and he really was a great guy. He really was.
Yeah,
So
good recommendation, good monologue choice, and an absolute
yeah,
legend. And you put it perfectly. Recommend the book. Absolutely. Go
yep,
read it.
we will do. But Eli, we got a lot of stuff to talk about here. This has been a busy, busy week in
It
sports
has
with
been.
opening day in baseball. We got the March Madness, and hey, let's start off first of all with congratulations to Caitlin Clark. She did make the finals, and should be a great game tomorrow against undefeated South Carolina, who are they almost look unstoppable. But
Absolutely.
we could be looking at a Cinderella finish to an unbelievable career for Caitlin Clark.
That is absolutely true. And what a game it was last night. Watching the highlights this morning, it was pretty incredible. Now, I think the one point of debate, which you can debate about it sometimes, the foul call at the end that led to the game winning free throws and everything. Looking at the tape, it was a clear indication of a foul from UConn, and I think that was the right call. But Jim, what are your thoughts about that foul at the end of the game? Was that a good call? Do you think it was controversial? I mean, I thought it was good. It looked good from
Well,
the angles I saw.
yeah, you know what? It's kind of it's hard to say. Yes, in the traditional sense, that was indeed a moving pick. But now you have to also take into the circumstances. There's 3 seconds left in the game, and it actually, took away an opportunity. But a foul is a foul. And I know Gino Oriama was saying, they called that on us all night, and they didn't call the same thing on Iowa. So you always get into that dynamic. But I think it could go either way. I mean, if it's that kind of a foul, and it could have altered the shot, so I think it was probably the right call. You could just question maybe the timing. That's all.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Good point there. I mean, yeah, 100%. You could say that the call was right, but you could definitely argue about the timing, and that definitely got a lot of people annoyed, especially if you're on the UConn side of things, because that gave away Iowa 2 free throws and a chance to win it all this Sunday tomorrow over on
Yep.
ABC with the championship. Should be a great one game there. My pick for this game, I'm going to take Iowa over South Carolina in this victory. Iowa just looked unstoppable. They played great yesterday. Throughout the Elite Eight, they were fantastic. It brought in so many good viewership, 12 million views, top basketball game on ESPN's network in a while, which is pretty incredible to say that. It even beat the NBA, which everybody's favorite is. It's pretty crazy to say. And I think absolutely Iowa will win the March Madness tournament tomorrow, and they'll take home the championship. South Carolina, a great team, but just based off of their Elite Eight performance with LSU, and after yesterday's game with UConn, which is a very difficult UConn team for a long time to come, I would absolutely say that Iowa will be your national champions tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, and I'm going to go the opposite way. I know this is a whole Cinderella story. I just, when a team goes into the final game 2 years in a row undefeated, it's a mountainous hill to climb for Iowa. And yes, it would all be great and absolutely be the Cinderella story. But this Aaliyah Boston for South Carolina, and Dawn Staley's been there before. I'm actually going to take South Carolina in that game. So
wow. All right.
Yeah.
So agree to disagree. And for those watching at home, feel free to comment. Let us know, who do you think will win tomorrow's Women's March Madness? Will it be Iowa or South Carolina? And let us also know your thoughts for the men's games, as we'll jump right into that as the Final Four for the men's kickoff tonight over on the Eternal Channels, TBS, TNT, and True TV. Game 1 is Purdue, NC State, followed by UConn, Alabama at 8:49. What a great matchups those are. I'm just shocked to see Purdue, NC State, and Alabama. That's all I could say. I'm shocked about those three to see them there. Why Purdue? They were out last week.
Their history. Yeah.
Because their history. Last year, they were out the first round to St. Peter's. And then you go to this year and they're in the Final Four. NC State, 11 seed going all the way this far is pretty incredible. And Alabama, too. You got to be shocked about that one. The way that.
Well, this is the first time they've made the Final Four in program history. And,
right.
So that's a big deal for them. I mean, obviously, the Cinderella story on the men's side is this run that North Carolina State's been on.
Right.
And what's the kid's name? Burns, the big guy in the center.
Yep.
Right. So, yeah, you would think that Purdue, Zach Edey, Player of the Year, just had a monster season. So I like them to knock off North Carolina State. And it's the first time that a team, they have the most losses of any team in history to make the Final Four. But wow. I think this run is going to be over. I don't think they could stop this guy, Zach Edey. He's really that good.
So what are you going to
the other game? Now, you always look and my final pick was UConn to win the whole thing. But you gotta be careful about something like this, because right. Alabama has been on a great run. They really are a good team. They just re-signed Nate Oates to a long-term extension. He's now one of the highest paid, so they're going to be here again. But I don't look for that to be an absolute blowout. And I'm sticking with UConn.
UConn, yeah.
But I will say I'm not going to be completely shocked, because it's difficult to repeat. If they can't pull the upset over UConn, I'm not going to be surprised by it.
All right. Yeah, for me, I'm going to have to go with UConn winning this whole March Madness tournament. They've been looking good from the start, and I understand the point. It's difficult coming back from a championship win last year, but I think UConn has it this year. But to play them in the Final Four, it's going to surprise a lot. I'm going to take NC State over Purdue. I don't know how much I can trust Purdue in this top 4 spot, considering their history run before. And looking at this NC State, and you look at their previous run in the bracket, it's pretty extraordinary how they were able to manage to get through all these games. And I would not be surprised NC State is in the championship. And it would be a fantastic way to see a number 1 seed versus a number 11 seed. So I'm going to pick North Carolina State versus UConn for the championship, and UConn wins it all on Monday, 9:20, same networks.
Wow, that's a big pick right there, my friend. Good.
Yeah.
All right.
It could work out though. And two other quick notes.
Going back, because I remember, I mean, I know they're an 11 seed, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, back in '83 when they won the national championship under Jim Valvano, I think they were also an 11 seed then.
All right.
As well. So history is on your side with that kind of run, but they got 14 losses this year. I think this is a way bigger stage for them than they can handle against Purdue this time. So I'm taking Purdue, and I'm taking UConn, and I'm taking UConn to win it all if they survive the Alabama game. That's
right.
all I'm saying.
Good points. Two other notes I want to bring up real quick for March Madness and just everything else. Florida Atlantic's Nick Boyd announced that he has entered the transfer portal. Now, this was a little confusing because he released the message both on Instagram and X/Twitter, but he announced it on April Fool's Day. So that question, was it really for real, or is it like an April Fool's joke? But based off the paragraph speech, it was true. From the same area high school alum, so Florida Atlantic, he has entered the transfer portal. Now, this also could come as FAU's coach heads to Michigan, so that is something to keep in mind. He has entered the transfer portal, a big name. He was in the Final Four last year, so that is a big player to watch out for, and we'll see come this offseason who picks up Nick Boyd, a fantastic player locally from right here in Jersey.
Yeah, well, we're gonna see transfers because now this portal thing has really kind of formulated into. Yeah, it's so we're going to see a lot of big names going to different schools, and that's why it's so hard, right? Because these guys in college, they rarely stay 4 years, right? Like Armando Bacot from North Carolina was an exception.
Didn't stay,
kind of thing, right?
Right.
So yeah, I'm not going to be surprised when we see some really big names change, and a lot of people now would like to go to UConn and. That's
all these other big schools.
All about. Right, yeah.
Right. The one other
there was an interesting thing, Eli, about UConn, and Caitlin Clark wanted to go to UConn, and Gino Auriemma really didn't pay her any attention, and now
and look at her. She's on her way to win a natty, a national championship. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible.
So listen, overall, you gotta say this has been another great March Madness tournament.
It's never like you're never going to say to yourself, this is not going to be a good March Madness. It was perfectly on point and fantastic. However, the one note that I'm going to add that has to relate to March Madness, Seton Hall got robbed. I'm going to say it time and time out. Seton Hall got robbed. They won the NIT the other day versus Indiana State, 79-77. It was a great game. A most watched NIT game on ESPN's network. Pretty incredible. Seton Hall's run, and they should have won. And they could have had a big run in the March Madness tournament. I think the committee definitely got that team wrong, in my opinion. Absolutely got them wrong. Now, I get it was a close game, but they got it wrong. By the way, their flight was delayed yesterday due to the earthquake home. So their parties got delayed, but just wanted to throw that out there. But, Seton Hall, congratulations on the NIT win. They'll get a banner in Seton Hall and at the Prudential Center, but they should have been in the March Madness Final Four. Just my opinion, real quick.
Yep. So let's stick with college sports for a minute while we're still on this, and a lot of college sports gets lost, and one that does is college hockey. So we're down to the Frozen Four, which is the equivalent of the Final Four for the men's. And I know one of our loyal listeners, Jim Walsh, remind me this week he's got some Boston College roots. So they're in it against they're playing University of Denver in one of the semifinal games, and the other game is Boston University. I have a niece that goes there. My brother and sister went there, and they're playing Michigan. So we're down to Final Four in college sports for the Frozen Four of hockey.
Yeah, I think this is a fantastic Frozen Four. Our friend Arda, who joined the show, of course, on the Sports and Mono-Logue. He's been part of the studio crews and everything with college final Frozen Four. And I think based off of the bracket, the way the college has been going with hockey, they're going to take Michigan to win it all. That's who my pick will be. I'll take Michigan.
All right. I'm going to go with I'm actually going to go with Boston University, not because
Okay.
I have
Connections
ties
there.
there for my family, but
Right.
you get a great, BU
It's
and
different.
BC are notoriously great hockey programs. Chris Drury came out of Boston University, now the president of the Rangers, so forth.
Yeah.
It'd be just a great match, and it doesn't get the publicity that I think it should, but enjoy that anyway, because those games will be on. I think they're the semifinal games, I think, are on like the 11th or the 12th. So we got another week or so for the final in that. But tune in.
It's a good separation because we need a
is.
break from all the basketball that has been heated up.
Yep. So Eli, it's been opening day, right? Baseball
It's
season
been opening
is
day.
underway, and we got some, we got some panic on the Mets side. We got some optimism on the Yankee side, and we don't know where it's going to go. We're only 7 games into the season.
Yeah,
but,
already 7 games in, and Mets can just end their season.
You know what? They'll bounce back. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but a lot of how they play and what happens during this season will dictate whether they bring back Pete Alonso or not. So that's the
true.
big story with the Mets.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big story there. I mean, to give it to the Mets credit, at least they got 2 wins compared to teams like the Miami Marlins, who have had 0 wins so far and played 8 games already entering today. And you had the A's 1-7. That's a joke franchise. 3,000 fans showed up on opening day. Come on, man, really? Like,
what game is that? Who had 3,000?
A's, the Oakland A's. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's great. And the best part is they're going to be moving stadiums. They're moving to Sacramento for the 2025 through 2027 season.
I know.
And they're just going to be called the Athletics before the Vegas move in 2028. We'll see how many people show up to that stadium now.
No, you're absolutely right. That was actually going to be one of my random points. So I'm glad you brought that up because, it's just turned into such a mess in Oakland. But, when you have 3,000 fans going to the game, it's a losing proposition. So
yeah.
I don't know how many more they're going to get in Sacramento. They really kind of ceased paying anybody. So they probably have the lowest payroll in baseball.
Yes.
And they're just riding it out. And again, with another major team going to Las Vegas, which means the NBA will have a franchise in Las Vegas within the next 5 years.
And you know what? If that does happen, they're going to be a strong team because we noticed it with hockey. When the 2 franchises of the Seattle Kraken and Vegas Golden Knights came to life, they were unstoppable. You look at this Vegas team, they were in the Stanley Cup final versus the Washington Capitals in just year 1. They didn't win it all. Washington won, but they were already in year 1. Seattle didn't have a fantastic run like Vegas did, but they still had a phenomenal season to start, and the success continued on even until now, and will definitely be a top contender eventually. They're not going to be in the playoffs this year. They've been eliminated, but still, you got to note that they had a phenomenal run to start their year. And that's what you got to just know. Whenever a next franchise comes to NBA, they're going to have a fantastic run ahead.
But I just caution, I caution Yankee fans and Met fans or fans of any team, right? It's so early in the season. And, Aaron Judge has gotten off to a slow start. Giancarlo Stanton gotten off to a slow start.
This always happens, though.
Right. And these guys will produce. It's a 162 game season. So,
and you're at game maybe 9 and 10 right now.
Right. And I got to say, though, I mean, this Juan Soto looks pretty good in pinstripes right now.
He does. Absolutely. I can tell you that. Juan Soto looks fantastic with the Yankees with the 6-2 start. Big loss yesterday, but still.
Yeah.
That's a good way for.
Obviously, I think the pitching has to be the major concern. I mean, Garrett Cole is going to be out for 2 months. But other highlights that go in, Ohtani hit his first home run for the Dodgers. And how about the start Mookie Betts is getting off to?
Yeah.
I mean, he is.
What a run.
Oh, my God. It's really going to be tough to beat that team with Freeman and Betts and Ohtani.
All that. It's incredible.
But we say this year after year after year. The Dodgers always seem to have the best team in the league, and they've only won one World Series in the past 10
Yeah.
years. So you never
Pretty
know.
incredible.
A lot of parity in there.
Yeah.
Are you a Seattle Mariners fan as well? Is that your team?
No, I root for the Yankees.
Okay.
I root for the tri-state. Go for the Yankees. If the Mets in the playoffs, you root for the Mets. That's just.
But you brought up before, like Miami got off to an 0-7 start. I think they say it's the first time in baseball history that a team that was in the playoffs the year before started a season 0-7. So
yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, so you gotta be excited about the baseball season. I know a lot of people can't sit down and watch a whole baseball game, and you and I have talked about this time and time again. Though we're going to see less and less games on free TV because, like, the Yankees are going to have all Wednesday games are going to be on Amazon, and
you have the games on Amazon, Apple TV, Peacock, all these other games. It's annoying, but that's just how the new reality is. But I guess you could say for baseball, it kind of works out because that promotes you to, hey, go to the game, show up to it if it's a home game, if it's an away game, maybe you want to purchase the app because it's a long season, it's worth it. In case like the NFL, that's not worth it because you could just watch the game highlights, there's red zone, there's so many other alternatives. So that's what makes, the NFL streaming not exactly top notch compared to what we have over in the major league side of things.
Yep.
And I mean, for the hockey side, ESPN Plus, I mean, it's affordable and I think it's worth it. You get to watch all the games. I mean, I don't have it, but I just do think that ESPN Plus is like the best alternative for the NHL, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, that's fair. That's a good assessment. But when you look at the start of the season, like the Detroit Tigers got off to this great start, 5-0, and they're not going to be anything. Obviously, they're in the worst division in Major League Baseball. It's basically the team that's going to win that division is going to finish with a 500 or just over a 500 record, just like it was last year. So reason to be optimistic for the Yankees. I know the Mets are feeling a little bit kind of left out, but they didn't make those offseason moves that they needed to. But the Yankees pitching will be a problem for them. That's why guys like Soto and Judge and Stanton. But you know what? I don't know, and I don't know about this Giancarlo Stanton anymore because he can't hit a slider, he can't hit a curveball, and we have a
comment from Mark.
Hold on, we got a comment from somebody.
Mr. Monahan, why do East Coast baseball teams start their season on the East Coast? With the amount of money players make, you would think the owners would want to protect them from the cold.
Wow. Well, that's such
a good question. Jim, I'll let you answer that one.
Well, first of all, thank you, because I know Mark Spaeth and I grew up in the same neighborhood, and I know he's a big sports fan too, and it's a great point, Mark. I've been an opening day before in the Yankees, and it snowed. So that actually makes a lot of sense. I just don't know how they developed the Major League Baseball schedule, but that's a good point, Mark, and I appreciate you sending in that comment. It was very, very well thought out, and you know what, you're right, because right now we're looking today's probably not going to get out of the low 50s, and it's cold.
It's cold. And then you have all the summer, and then the fall goes into cold too. By September, it gets cold.
Oh my God! You can see the world. Let's say the Yankees make the World Series. The World Series now almost goes into November, so those are some cold nights too. You're right.
Yeah.
But thank you, Mark, for the comment.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You and your family are doing well. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Right.
Other note from the MLB baseball side of things. The Yankees have pushed back Monday's game from 2:05 to 6:05 due to the solar eclipse, which is happening in the United States. New Jersey, New York is not so much New York because Buffalo's it counts as New York, but most of Jersey will not see the full, it's on the direct path line of it, but you will see some of the eclipse. So
Yeah,
enjoy the
you
solar
will.
eclipse. Don't look at the sun. Buy your glasses. And if you're going to be going to a high school baseball game like I am, because the Gales are home that day, just be cautious. Take a look. Just take a look at the schedule. See if it doesn't get moved. Wouldn't be surprised it does, because that those pop-up foul balls. Wouldn't be surprised. That's just want to throw that out there.
Very good. Very good. So Eli, take us through the NBA real quick.
Well, I think for the Knicks, let's start with the Knicks. I mean, Julius Randle, he's going to undergo season-ending surgery. He is going to be out for the rest of the run for the Knicks if they have. It's going to be very difficult to see. And regarding the teams that clinched already, you have the Boston Celtics in the East, and in the West, Denver, Minnesota, and Oklahoma all clinched their spot in the playoffs. Teams eliminated so far is the Brooklyn Nets, Toronto Raptors, Charlotte Hornets, Washington Wizards, Detroit Pistons, Utah Jazz, Memphis Grizzlies, Portland Trailblazers, and San Antonio Spurs, all out of the playoff race. And the rest of the 10 teams in the East, that includes the Celtics, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Orlando, New York, Indiana, Miami, Philadelphia, Chicago, and Atlanta are guaranteed to play in either the play-in or will have a playoff spot. So congrats to these teams. In the West, it's tricky because you have Golden State and Houston at the 10 and 11 seed. They're at a point where a couple more losses from Golden State and a couple more wins for Houston can swap those teams out. So that is why we don't have a full, complete market set for the West Coast side. Mm-hmm. And we don't have all the teams that are confirmed who will be a guaranteed playoff spot and not play it, but we do know some already. And as I mentioned in the top of the NBA beginnings, NBA is down to its couple final games, playoffs starting soon. NBA is NBA, and Julius Randle with the Knicks is definitely, I think, the biggest news story from the NBA side of things. That's going to definitely hurt a lot of the Knicks fans. But Jim, I'll take over from there.
It's kind of funny because, I mean, they were ready to run him out of town a couple of years ago and so forth. And then, but I will tell you this, it's from an NBA perspective, I don't see the regular season as I don't watch a lot of NBA, but I have been a little bit intrigued by the Knicks because,
I agree.
I and Mark, who was just commenting on the show, we grew up watching, just some of the great basketball of the 70s and, with championship teams and Walt Frazier. And now, they haven't really been relevant for a very long time. They did make it to the finals with Patrick Ewing, but they didn't win it. But this is interesting. But one thing I realized there's a common thing on this Knicks team, and you can't deny that Jalen Brunson has really he's actually surprised me at how good he is. I knew he was great, but from a pedigree perspective, him, Josh Hart, and Dante DiVincenzo, the common theme there, they're all from Villanova. And I've always said that Jay Wright was one of the greatest basketball coaches and teachers of the game. So it's no surprise that these three have actually, made an impact on the team and made, generated a lot more interest in the Knicks than it's been for the past 15 years. That's certainly.
And I think it's a good thing to see the Knicks, start to get their shine, because they were always this team that, they lose another one. They lose this, they lose that. The New York Knicks, look at the Brooklyn side, to get a little more spark in the New York area is very exciting to see. And I hope that New York gets a good run in the playoffs, and hopefully they don't get that play-in spot. And we would love to see them go far here in the New York area.
Yeah, but overall, when you look at it right now on paper, I mean, the Boston Celtics looks like the team to beat, but we've seen that in the past couple seasons, so that doesn't,
and it did not work out,
anything, right?
Right.
Anyway,
NHL?
Yep, let's talk some NHL, and let's talk with your Devils and my Rangers. The game last week during the week,
Wednesday game, that was phenomenal.
That was something else, right?
I could tell you, outside of the outdoor games.
I don't know. I mean, I find it. Go ahead. Yeah.
I think outside the outdoor games, I think that was the best game to watch this whole season. That was incredible. The puck dropped, 2 seconds, stopped the clock, 5-on-5 fight, except for the goalies. That was incredible. And the fact that everybody got sent to the locker room was absolutely insane. Another fight happened after. About 10 guys got ejected for that game. It was pretty incredible.
No.
No bench left.
So
Disappointed in the Devils because they lost 4-3 and a bad comeback from them. That's a different argument for a different day. But for the fight, that's what makes hockey special. And that is just incredible. What a rivalry that is. Now, if this was another playoff matchup like last year, Rangers Devils, now with Rempe in the mix, God, wow, this would be the highlight. Would be just watching that game. It would be insane to views. But unfortunately, the Devils ain't making the playoffs. Sorry to say that.
Yeah, it was really a spectacle to see. I mean, and I know a lot of people abhor, the fighting in hockey, but as we've said time and time again, it is part of the game. It always has been and always will be.
And I'm glad the NHL hasn't banned it yet.
Yeah. But the fact that this guy Rempe, and a lot of people say, what's up with this guy? Well, first of all, I mean, he's there to do that particular job. I don't think he's much of a hockey player. He's too big to play in the forward, and he's not a defenseman. We've seen big guys his size be defensemen and be successful. But he's, the guy on the Devils really gave him the business too. I mean, this guy
he did.
If you're going to be the enforcer, you gotta set the tone for all of that stuff. And
Rempe's there.
He's not setting the tone. So a lot of people say, okay, well, what about the playoffs? He's not going to be dressed for a lot of those playoff games. He's going to be dressed as needed because you can't just take, especially in playoff hockey, you can't just have one guy that's a one-dimensional, just a fighter guy, because that takes away from the offensive need of scoring in the playoffs because, listen, the Rangers are having the best season they've ever had. They're one win away.
The playoffs, Jim. Just wait till the playoffs. They're President's Trophy.
I know there's the curse of the President's Cup, and I get all that stuff. But you got to also give credit the year that Artemi Panarin. I mean, if it wasn't for Kucherov in Toronto, he would probably be the MVP. And I bet he finishes second because Kucherov is just, he's got 133 points. But I've always thought Artemi Panarin was one of the best passing forwards in NHL history. And, it all came together for them. So, yeah, I'm not, they're going to have tough matches. Who they're going to open up with depends on the seedings and how it all plays out. But hockey, playoff hockey, like you and I have always said, it's the toughest trophy to win. It's the longest road to get there. And it's just, I can't wait till playoff hockey starts.
A couple of things. I think because the Rangers have the best chance right now of winning the President's Trophy based off how their standings are, don't bet them to win. Don't bet. I know if we don't talk about betting, but whatever you do, don't pick the Rangers. In the brackets, whatever you decide to do, don't pick the Rangers because I'm not being rude, but the President's Trophy curse is a real thing. And I have a good feeling this could affect the Rangers. So to save your dollar bills and hurting your brackets from being ruined, just take the advice from your friend Eli.
Right.
Other notes.
Well, I'm gonna say this about the Rangers. And after I was a big fan of Gerard Gallant. I thought he was the right coach at the right time. And then when they fired him, who was going to be the guy? And I know Lavallette's name came up a bunch of times. He's coached probably 5 different teams, but he also is a Stanley Cup winner. And I think that is the difference. I like everything that he's done so far. So I dismiss your President's Cup curse as a foregone conclusion, but playoff hockey is just about to get underway, and it's going to be awesome. It is
going to be awesome. And we have a comment from Mark again, a big Rangers fan too. I just found out that Panarin was undrafted. So yeah,
that was one of the great signings the Rangers have ever had, Mark. And like I said, we grew up watching this stuff, and we got an opportunity to win the Stanley Cup in '94, which was just amazing. But I think they got a lot going for them this time around. And I think the President's Cup trophy is not going to be the curse for them. So anyway.
All right. One other note from the NHL world, just one real quick. TNT Sports will be hosting next Sunday a Warner Brothers NHL multiverse game featuring the Colorado Avalanche versus the Golden Knights at 3:30 p.m. Traditional telecast on TNT. The Warner Brothers game will be on True TV. and will feature characters such as Batman, Bugs Bunny, and many of your favorite Warner Brothers friends and characters. And this is going to be similar to ESPN's Disney's Big City Greens Classic. So that is what Warner Brothers and TNT said, yeah, ESPN, you did the Big City Greens Classic. You did great for 2 years. Now our turn. Let's bring in some of your favorite Warner Brothers characters, such as Bugs Bunny and Batman. That's going to happen next Sunday over on True TV. So nice job, and we'll see how that plays out. We'll see if it's better than Disney's and ESPN's Big City Greens Classic.
Okay. Well, you keep us up to speed on that animated stuff, right? I mean, that's awesome.
I love looking at the press releases from all the media companies and just like see what their ratings are, all that fun stuff. It's exciting, interesting information.
Good stuff, Eli. So, like I said, it's been a full slate. It's going to be a busy weekend in sports, and it's basketball, it's hockey, it's baseball. It's just this is why we're in business here, because
yes, we are. So much now is the heated moment.
Yeah. So a couple things. Let's go into our random points of interest, which of course is sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut. And I got a couple of little ones, and I know you have some too. There was an interesting thing about, how when they built these tiles, like you can donate tiles in stadiums and so forth, but the San Francisco Giants tore up all of those tiles that were around the Willie McCovey Stadium, the statue, and that was I felt very that was such a wrong thing, because guys are like, oh my God, my mother and I used to come to games. She was the big Giants fan, and they didn't have any regard for the fans that had memories in that stadium, and it was kind of a bad PR move on their spot. They're going to take the tiles and put them in some sort of a digital format, but it's never the same. When you make that commitment, you make that donation to that title, you expect it to be there until the stadium falls apart. So
that's
that was
kind
of bad.
You're not San Francisco. You were at the Padres, right? You were at the
right. But this was the Giants. This was the Giant Giant Stadium.
Right.
Back Bell Park. Very cool thing. It was Andy Reid threw out the first ball at the Royals home opener.
We talked about that.
And he threw it to probably the greatest Royal, one of the all-time best hitters in baseball was George Brett. And Andy Reid threw a strike, and George Brett caught it. And, when I think of George Brett, obviously we go back to the days of those American League Championship Series and the Pine Tar incident and all that kind of stuff. But, he was a great hitter, 305 lifetime average, probably the best Royal ever to play in that uniform. And it was a big moment for Andy Reid, now a 3-time winning Super Bowl head coach. And I thought that was a pretty cool thing.
There really is.
Another thing, and this is from the world of hockey. And again, not just promoting the Rangers here, but Jonathan Quick became the all-time winningest American-born hockey goalie. And that's a big thing, because he just passed. The next 4 on that list is Ryan Miller, John Van Beesbrook, Tom Barrasso, and Craig Anderson. So that's a big thing. And Mike Quick is a Stanley Cup winning goalie for the Kings. Had a kind of a terrible year with 2 different teams, but he's had, he could be considered the comeback player of the year in the NHL. And now he's the all-time winningest goaltender. That's great.
Comment from Diego, Pine Tar Brett.
Yeah, that was the famous game where they called him out for using too much pine tar. It was subsequently reversed. They finished the game, but that's a memory. I don't know if you've ever seen the highlight of that, Eli.
Cool. I will have to take a look at that. Add that to the
take a look at that. Yeah. And and just this other strange thing again with the Kansas City Chiefs, the off the field stuff just doesn't seem to stop with them, but they win Super Bowl after Super Bowl. But this Rashee Rice thing and the accident he caused, and I guess that was Las Vegas or Dallas or something.
I think it was Dallas.
Yeah. So, he's a football player, but you know what? People could have got hurt. I think some people did get hurt, but he's lucky people weren't killed. But you can't, as we see this time and time again, these athletes just have complete disregard for the societal norms that we all adhere to. And I hope he pays the consequence for it, because if not, you can't just say, because he's a football player, here's a check and we'll buy it off. There are rules in this society that people need to follow, whether you're an athlete or not.
Right.
Like,
no, I agree. There's no, you set the standard. If you want to be famous, you want to be out there, you need to also do the right thing. And what that happened was wrong. 100% agree.
Yep.
All right.
So Eli, give me your random points.
I got tons of it. We'll start off with the NFL discussion. NFL Network released Andrew Siciliano, Melissa Stark, James Palmer, and Will Selva, part of their layoff period. So a lot of big names released from the NFL Network side. Panthers signed defensive tackle Derek Brown to a 4-year deal, $96 million. And the new Dane, what'd you say?
What did we say? They're paying defensive linemen in record numbers right now.
Right, and that is a record number. And the newest, hottest team that is going to win it all, mark my words, the Houston Texans pick up wide receiver from the Buffalo Bills, Stephon Diggs. What a pickup that was. They are dangerous to watch, my friend.
Let's be careful here. I know some Buffalo Bills fans, and I watched him. He drops a lot of passes last year. He seems like he's a locker room disturbance. And you know what? They only got a 6th round pick or something for him, or whatever they had to give up. But he's getting, I don't know that he's the player he once was. I don't know what happened in Buffalo. He must have had a falling out with Josh Allen or something.
Yes, I think it is.
The Bills fans are not surprised. I'm not surprised. I actually called this, saying they're gonna have to get rid of this guy, because he's not the player he once was. But on the downside of it, that means Buffalo Bills have to take a $31 million hit in the dead cap money, and
that is correct.
That's the Buffalo Bills have probably had more personnel changes during this offseason so far than any other team in the league. So we're going to see how that goes.
Well, I just want to say that the Houston Texans are definitely going to be a wild team, because you have Joe Mixon, C.J. Stroud, Nick Collins, Tank Dell, and tight end Dalton Schultz. This is a loaded roster right there. And adding Stephon Diggs, don't get me wrong, the chemistry was not there in Buffalo, but I feel with this Houston side, we're going to see a whole new Stephon Diggs. And I think that was a costly mistake by Buffalo. But if Stephon Diggs wants to go, right decision. And mark my words, Houston Texans will go far. Other notes I'll bring up real quick. Our friend Aaron Rodgers, he only made $81.14 last year for the NFL's performance-based pay system. He was the lowest earned quarterback pay. So $81. Enjoy that big check. Don't spend it all at one place now. Hassan Riddick from the Eagles has retired, and the Chiefs signed Carson Wentz to a 1-year deal.
I thought Riddick was traded to the Jets.
Well, maybe I was wrong. I made it wrote it wrong.
He was traded to the Jets. Yeah.
Okay. There you go. Yeah, he said a goodbye, so I thought wrong. All right, my bad on that story. Other couple news: Baltimore Orioles and Ravens will be donating a combined total of $10 million to the Baltimore Community Foundation's Key Bridge Emergency Fund. So thank you to those two. They will be helping to repair those major bridge of the Key Bridge.
Oh my goodness, that was a tragedy. And
that was.
Wow.
Executive for ESPN Norby Williams is out of office. This also comes with tons of problems. And Pat McAfee show sabotage situation where they thought of ratings being stolen out and everything. That is a big, interesting take that happened over at ESPN this past week. Finally, 2 other notes. Prime Video extends their WNBA partnership and will continue to have 21 exclusive games streaming on Prime Video. That includes the Commissioner's Cup game as well. And the last note, Gales Baseball starts with 2-0 and over in NJ. Same year, Gales Baseball in NJ has a 2-0 start with a Leonia victory on Monday, 19-1, and Weehawken 16-0 on Thursday. They have Melbourne in about 15 minutes or so, and they're in Melbourne. And at 4 p.m., they'll be On Monday, they'll play Harrison, the solar eclipse game, pending on what the NJIC and government decides to do in that. Those are my random points. Harrison Riddick, that was my mistake on the error there, folks. I do apologize.
Yeah, that's all right. But I actually have to get up to speed on it's just been so busy in sports, but I do follow high school baseball, and I don't know where my St. Joe's team is right now. But I'm sure they got a formidable program, and
they, I believe, play St. Mary's next Saturday in St. Joe's, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
maybe I'll try to make that game.
I think it's a 7, maybe 11 o'clock start, maybe.
Okay.
Pending.
Yeah. All right, listen, we got a couple of quick things. Excuse me, that we have to talk about because it's the Masters starts Thursday, and as I've told you, I know maybe you're not such a big golf fan, but I certainly am. I haven't missed a Masters tournament in 50 plus years, probably.
Yeah.
It's one of the most beautiful venues in sports, and it's awesome. So John Rahm is the defending champ, so obviously he's the favorite going in. I have some players. This is one of the toughest tournaments that you could possibly pick. But I'm going to give 3 or 4 names that I think can finish in the top 10. And we haven't heard much from Brooks Koepka in a while because he's playing on the live thing. I don't watch live golf.
Yeah.
But his history of playing big in the majors, and this guy he's cocky and he's arrogant, but he's one hell of a golfer. So I'm going to give him a puncher's chance. And also Victor Hovland from we saw the year he had last year, and he could be a formidable guy. And we have, Hideki Matsuyama, who's actually won the Masters 2 years ago. He likes that course, so he should be in there. And one of my all-time sleepers, and I picked him to win the British Open 2 years ago, and he did win the British Open, is Colin Morikawa. So those are the names that I'm going to get. And people say, well, you left Spieth off, you left McIlroy off. Well,
Coriano said Hovland.
Yeah, so
there you go.
He's going to be in the mix. But the Spieths and guess who else I didn't mention? The number 1 player in the world, Scottie Scheffler. And but if you saw, I think he's going to be rattled by that missed putt he had last week in that tournament, which he ended up losing. But he'll be up there. But I think I don't know that he can get over this that quickly. But I pulled for him to win because he's kind of a local guy. I told you, he went to kindergarten with my niece, that kind of stuff. So, but there's my picks: Rahm, Hovland, Koepka, and Matsuyama. And
all right, good picks.
Like I said, that starts Thursday. Obviously, 4 days, and it's just a beautiful venue. So I hope people get a chance to watch it.
All right, sounds
and
good.
One other thing before we move on to our book recommendations and notable passings. Don't look now, but the Kentucky Derby is about a month away. So I'm going to give some of the early favorites, which right now, and you have all of the races leading up to it. You have the Florida Derby was last week, and that was won by Fierceness. So he's going to be a Kentucky Derby contender. You have the Wood Memorial. You have the Bluegrass Stakes. You have the Louisiana Derby. These are all the prep races leading up to that. So that'll determine what the final field is for that. But you have, horses like Dornoch and Sierra Leone. Keep an eye on these names. We'll add to those names as we get closer to the Kentucky Derby, but that's one of my favorite races in sports.
Yeah.
So that's coming
pretty
up.
Incredible.
Yep. So Eli, I have just wanted to bring up, and it's relating to, I mentioned the monologue with Muhammad Ali and how incredible it was. I read a book called Killing the Legends by Bill O'Reilly. It's a series of books that he's written, and whether you like them or dislike them is political. It's not a political book. It's just very, very informative. And this was about Elvis Presley and John Lennon and Muhammad Ali. Great read, easy read. I highly recommend it because I found out things about those 3 individuals that I did not know. and I thought I knew a lot about him. But it's a
Right.
great thing, and the facts that he laid out and the fights that Muhammad Ali had, it's worth a read. So that's my book recommendation for the week.
So it's book and movie. He partial into movie.
Yeah, no, we could do a book one week. We could do a movie next week. We're not set in stone. We have literary license here.
Yeah, we do. That's good. No, good idea. Yeah, I agree. Now, time for the photo, real quick, before we head to notable passings.
Yep. And that's my grandson Hudson, who's closing in on 2 years old. But I had an opportunity to see him over the weekend or during the week, and he's just, he's a little wild one. But that's my picture of the week.
All right, pretty good photo. All
right, Eli. So we do have some notable passings we need to bring up.
Yes, we do.
I think you have a couple you wanted to bring up.
Yes, the first one is a shout out to my friend Jack. His grandmother passed away this weekend. Our thoughts and prayers to him and his family. So thoughts and prayers on that end there. And the one that we'll get into, and you'll talk probably more of, is Dolphins cornerback Avante Davis, who was from the Dolphins. He died this past week. He was born in 1988. Jimmy, have any thoughts from there, and take the rest away?
Yeah, I mean, Avante Davis was 35 years old. They found him in Miami or something. So there's going to be backstories about that. I don't think this is going to be a natural cause scenario, but he did have a serviceable career in the NFL, no doubt. There's also another one, Larry Lucchino. Now, Larry Lucchino was the president of the Boston Red Sox for their most recent 3-time World Series champion teams. He was the guy that hired Theo Epstein, who came in and put the first one in 2004. So he was 78 years old, big, and he was a president of I think the Padres and maybe another team, but he was certainly well known in baseball circles. He was 78 years old. One I didn't actually get to mention last week was Senator Joseph Lieberman. He was 82 from Connecticut. So, I'm familiar with him. He was, and again, we're not a political show by any stretch, but he was always a kind of a guy that took the cause, didn't stand by party lines, and crossed over party lines if he thought it was best for the country. And I think he was a pretty decent guy overall.
Yeah.
A couple other ones from, and I'm going to mention the name, and no one's going to know because I didn't know. It's Juan Vicente Perez Mora. And what's unique about that man is he was the oldest living man in the world at 114 years old. So he died just a couple weeks shy of his 115th birthday. So whatever he was eating, whatever diet he was on, it seemed to work. But I wanted to mention that because he was the oldest guy in the world.
Wow, pretty good.
And there were two also from the world of sports. And Mike Colon, who was a linebacker on the 72 undefeated Miami Dolphins team. So he played besides Nick Bonacani, started 13 games that season. And, he's a kind of a legend at the University of Auburn as well. He was 76 years old. So, this is how many years ago? Over 50 some odd years ago. Never been an undefeated team since. He was part of that. And I remember that because when we were growing up, Steve and I, we had this, it's called the Sunoco book. And one of our listeners, Mark Spaeth, might remember this. That's how we really became entrenched in football. And Mike Colon was one of those players on the Miami Dolphins. You would get gas at Sunoco, and
you get so it's like a book thing.
Yeah, it was cool. And one other one, okay.
Mark, the 114-year-old man, he prayed the rosary twice a day.
Hey,
good for him.
Whatever works, it worked for him. That's for sure. Thanks, Mark. And one other note from the world of sports: Pat Zachary, who was a pitcher on the 76 world champion Cincinnati Reds team. He was 71 years old, but probably more famous, believe it or not, because he was part of the trade he was part of, I think it was him, Doug Flynn, Steve Henderson, and Dan Norman were traded to the New York Mets for Tom Seaver, which was,
Wow.
Tom Seaver is a legend, one of the greatest pitchers of all time. But Pat Zachary was 71 years old, but certainly he was Rookie of the Year actually in 1976 and got a win in the World Series against the Yankees. So we
Pretty
had
impressive.
a bunch of notable passings, and again, Eli, thanks for your commentary, and
No
good
problem.
luck with your St. Mary's Gales, and enjoy this weekend because there's a lot of sports
A
and
lot of sports to
again,
watch, a lot of things to do. If you're a wrestle fan, there's WrestleMania this weekend if you like that stuff to
yep.
watch. And yeah,
And but again, we would never ever take for granted our loyal listeners and so forth. I have a lot of young friends and guys like Mark who just commented a couple times. We have a wide spectrum of audiences, and it's growing every single week. And a lot of it has to do with your production stuff, but the content is what we're all about. And I did have a comment. Somebody told me that, yeah, you and Eli, we always agree on everything, but no, we actually don't agree on everything.
no, we don't agree on everything, but that's what makes the show it is.
Right. But we got good chemistry, we got good content, and we don't never take for granted our loyal listeners. So thank you all, and we'll see you guys back here next week. Thank you,
And comment from Diego.
Please.
Good show, boys. Thank you for watching. And to all, thank you for watching. We will see you next week. Good day.
Have a good week, Eli.
Yep, you too.